All right, we are halfway through the third quarter of the year 2023, and today we're going to look at the numbers starting from the beginning of the second quarter up to today, and then we're going to talk about an important nuance that affects you directly if you're selling or buying a home in the coming months. So let's check it out. My name is Christopher McGee. I'm the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. Halcyon Real Estate is affiliated with the Keller Williams Market Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today is the 21st of August, 2023, and this is the numbers and the nuance. Every week, I'm tracking several important numbers. I'm pulling those numbers straight off of the MLS, giving you that raw data that you can have access to the same way I have access to it as a licensed real estate agent in Utah. You can look at my real estate numbers explained video to get a deeper quality understanding of what each of these numbers mean and what they look like when they go up and down. That's flagged in the top right of the screen there. You can get saw and all that. Right now, let's check out the numbers. Our inventory currently sits at 8,808. That is up by 73 from the previous week, and the trend there has been consistently up since the very beginning of April. There's not been 1 week where inventory came down relative to the previous week since the beginning of April. Currently, our average days on market, the number of days that a property is on the market before it accepts an offer and goes under contract, right now that number of days sits at 44. That is down from the 45 that we had in the previous week. Overall, this is a downward trend, but looking like you can see where about halfway through on that graph, that downward trend kind of stopped, lulled, and the last several weeks it has been tracking its way back up. Last week, average list price for a home was $610,039, while the average sold price for a home was $602,497. The difference between those two numbers being $7,542 in the buyer's favor. So that's up significantly from the previous week by about $6,500. Overall, from the beginning of the second quarter, a slight upward trend, and while this graph looks like the data points are all over the map, the fact is we aren't looking at this data deviating far from a certain range. It's really between like $14,500 and $4,500 less than actual list price on average where homes are being sold on average. Number of homes sold last week was 549. That's up by just 16 from the previous week. We've been trending right about where we are right now since the beginning of the second quarter. Number of homes we have currently under contract sits at 4,803. That's down just by 8, so not a dramatic movement at all, but it has been down for the last 5-6 weeks in a row. We see this trending gently down over time since the beginning of April. Price reductions last week. The number of times last week that a seller decided they needed to drop their price in order to attract a buyer, that happened 995 times. That's up by 55 from the previous week. This has clearly trended up since the beginning of the second quarter. And last number we always look at is the number of listing contracts that have been either canceled, they've expired, or they've been withdrawn from the MLS. That happened last week, 336 times. That's up by 135 from the previous week. We're trending a tiny bit up over time, over the months since the beginning of the second quarter at the beginning of April there. All right. All right, let's say you live here in Utah and you're either listening or reading about news relevant to our housing market. Stop right there. What are the sources that this news is coming from? Because most sources look at data points from the previous quarter, sometimes even the previous year. So if you're reading an article from the Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News, I have nothing against either of those platforms, just know how they're sourcing their data. Generally, when they're looking at housing market data, you're looking at last quarter's data sourced from some nearby universities, School of Economics or School of Business. It's just really important to know you're looking at last quarter's, sometimes last year's data. Worse, let's say you're reading an article from the Wall Street Journal. Again, nothing against the Wall Street Journal, it's just this is how they source their data. They're looking at national data, and if you want to know what's going on in Utah's housing market, you're zoomed way too far out. So let's say you're reading an article from the Wall Street Journal, and it says that America is looking at record low inventory levels right now, which by the way we are. Problem is now you're clueless because you're looking at irrelevant data relative to where you live. Okay, just think about this. If you're sourcing data from all the MLS systems in the nation in order to find out what's going on nationally and look at those trends, then you're pulling from 500 to 600 MLS systems. And of all the data from all of those systems, you're seeing that on the national level, we're looking at a record low inventory issue. If the overwhelming majority of them are at record lows, then nationally we have a trend of record low inventory. But that doesn't account for the places where we're not dealing with record low inventory, like Utah. See, two things can be true at once. We can be having a national inventory crisis, and we can be living in a state that had the economy, the foresight, and the managerial capacity to not have that problem. So just remember, if you're looking at national data, you're not necessarily well informed on what's going on locally. Okay, so let's go briefly back to the example of maybe you're reading an article in the Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News, and the article says, good news, selling your home might be getting easier. Average days on market came sharply down from 60 to 40 throughout the second quarter. And indeed, throughout the second quarter, we did see average days on market go from close to 60 down to about 40. So you think, great, we're on this sharply downward trajectory for average days on market, and last time we had a number for it, it was at about 40. Well, we're about halfway through the third quarter now, and as long as that downward trajectory continued, then we're at 30, maybe 20 days. Maybe I'm just gonna stick a for sale by owner sign in my yard. I don't even need an agent to do this for me. We're back in 2021. This is easy to sell my home, and my home's awesome. It's probably gonna sell faster than average anyway. Well, what you didn't know hurt you. It's true, that was the second quarter's data, and right at the beginning of the third quarter, you can see that downward trajectory stopped, and average days on market sat at around 40 days for a couple months before starting to go back higher again. So you've got a FSBO sign in your yard, or you expected your agent to sell your home in 2 weeks, and you're not under contract yet, and you're frustrated because you made plans based on a timeline that was poorly informed. So don't be poorly informed. And this is why I say, this is why it's important to track weekly data. If you're looking at last quarter's data, there are times when it's gonna serve you well enough, but there are too many times where that's not giving you the right picture. So if you wanna be well informed on Utah's housing market, follow me. If you know it's not your job to be well informed on Utah's housing market, but you value the counsel of somebody whose job it is to be well informed on Utah's housing market, when it's time for you to buy or sell a home, hire me. All right, I'm off my soapbox for this week. So if you or anybody you know is looking to buy or sell a home in the coming months or early next year or anything, please reach out to me and let me know. I will be communicatively excellent. I know the numbers, I know the market like my own image in the mirror. And that's what you should expect when you hire a real estate professional. And of course, as always, if you'd like to stay educated on the Utah real estate market, you can just hit subscribe, and I'll see you week to week, and you can stay solid on what these numbers are, and of course on what the nuance is reading into those numbers. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time.